So in the second part of our notes on psychoanalysis, we're going to kind of shift. We talk about the parts of the mind and personality and defense mechanisms and the psychosexual stages. Now we're going to talk about Neo Freudians, so new Freudians. And this is where psychoanalytic becomes the psychodynamic perspective, okay? Because they don't necessarily buy into all of what Freud says, but they use it for a base of what they believe. So like Freud, Alfred Adler believed in childhood tensions. This is another name that you have to know. However, these tensions were social in nature and not sexual. So Adler said that a child struggles with the inferiority complex during growth and strives for superiority and power. And if you think about it, a child can't really make any decisions for themselves if the parent doesn't let them. So they strive for that in other ways by kind of overcompensating and making sure that they puff out their chests and show their power in other ways. Like Adler, Karen Horney, again, really applicable name for this perspective, right? Believed in the social aspects of childhood growth and development. Children were trying to overcome a sense of helplessness. She countered Freud's assumption that women have weak superegos and suffer from something that Freud called penis envy. Just getting even more awkward here. So penis envy, according to Freud, was that women saw or see, he would argue, still currently see, that women see the power that men have, and they think to themselves, well, what does he have that I don't have? Yeah, he's got the power, but he's got a penis. I don't have that. So they equate. So Freud translates that into, if a woman is really like power hungry, they have like penis envy, and that they want that genitalia because it means then that they can be powerful. And Karen Horney said that's ridiculous. So Neo-Freudians with Jung. So Carl Jung, another huge name, believed in what he called the collective unconscious, which contained a common reservoir of images derived from our species past. And it's full of things called archetypes. Archetypes are universal, symbolic images that appear across cultures in myth, art, stories, and literature. So like the evil, dark antagonist of a story, right? Like the perfect one is Darth Vader. But then we have like this hero that's always in the light and probably more colorful, people like Superman. Like, those are archetypes that are in our collective unconscious. So then we got to ask, how do we assess these unconscious processes? Like, how do we test them? How do we figure out what's going on with an individual? So evaluating personality from an unconscious mind perspective would require a psychological instrument. And they use what's called projective tests that would reveal the hidden unconscious mind. So two main projective tests used are the TIOT, thematic apperception test, and the Rorschach Inkblot test. I want you to take a couple notes on what is a projective test really quickly. It's not a multiple choice, and you'll see this here in just a second when we talk about the two types of tests. The kind of mnemonic that I have students remember with projective is that a psychoanalyst, a psychologist of the Freudian perspective, has to project their assumptions, their interpretation of the results in order for there to be any meaning. There's not just you answered number 4 this way, so that means this about your personality. No, that would be an objective test, which that does exist and we'll talk about later. But projective tests, it requires the psychoanalyst to interpret the results. So a TIOT was developed by Henry Murray, is a projective test in which people express their inner feelings and interests through the stories they make up about ambiguous scenes. So they're shown an ambiguous scene like this one, and they're told, tell me what's happening in this picture. Well, that could go any way. He could be taking a nap and she's, really tired and exhausted because her babies won't go to sleep. No, I don't experience that. Or maybe he just died and she's weeping, right? Like, whatever story you tell is revealing of your personality. And then what's going on in these pictures? Just some more examples here. The Rorschach Inkblot test, you've probably seen this at some point, whether it's in movies or something. It's the most widely used projective test with a set of 10 ink blots that were designed by Hermann Rorschach. It seeks to identify people's inner feelings by analyzing their interpretations of the ink blots after they're asked, what do you see, right? What do you see? Like in the clouds, what do you see in this ink blot? It would reveal parts of their personality. So there's criticisms of this. Critics argue that projective tests lack both reliability and validity. They're not consistent in their results, nor do they predict what they're supposed to predict. So even trained raters evaluating the same patient come up with different interpretations, and that would be a lack of reliability. And then projective tests may misdiagnose a normal individual as pathological, which then means it's invalid. So just some criticisms of projective tests.